The morning started like any other Tuesday at Adelaide Cottage. William woke up before sunrise as he always did, quietly slipping out of bed so he wouldn't wake Kate. She needed all the rest she could get these days. He walked to the kitchen, in his pajamas and slippers, the old wooden floors creaking softly under his feet. The house was completely silent, except for the gentle ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. William put the kettle on and stood by the window looking out at their garden. The roses Kate loved so much were blooming beautifully in the early morning light. She had planted most of them herself when they first moved to the cottage. Back then she would spend hours working in the dirt, her hands covered in soil, laughing. When the children would come running to help and make an even bigger mess, those were simpler times, before everything changed. The sound of the postman's van pulling up the driveway broke William from his thoughts. He could see the red Royal Mail truck through the window. The postman, an elderly man named Derek, who had been delivering mail to royal residences for over 20 years, walked up to the front door with a stack of letters. William heard the familiar sound of mail being pushed through the slot in the door. He made his tea and walked to the front entrance where several letters had fallen on the mat. Most were the usual correspondence, but one envelope immediately caught his attention. It was thick and official-looking, with the letterhead of the private medical practice in London where Kate had been receiving treatment. His heart began to beat faster as he picked it up. These types of letters never brought good news. William carried the envelope back to the kitchen and sat down at the small wooden table, where his family ate breakfast every morning. His hands were shaking slightly as he opened it. The letter was addressed to both him and Kate, but she was still sleeping upstairs. He knew he should wait for her to wake up so they could read it together, but something told him this was information he needed to process first. The letter was from Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Kate's primary oncologist. William had met her many times over the past months and respected her honesty, even when the news was difficult to hear. The letter began with the usual formal greeting, but then the words became much more serious. Dr. Mitchell explained that Kate's latest test results had come back from the laboratory, and they were not what the medical team had hoped to see. The cancer markers in Kate's blood had increased significantly over the past month. The current treatment plan was not working as well as they had initially expected. Dr. Mitchell wrote that they would need to discuss more aggressive treatment options, including a different type of chemotherapy that would require Kate to stay in the hospital for several days at a time. The side effects would be much more severe than what she had been experiencing. William read the letter 3 times, each time hoping he had misunderstood something, but the message was clear. Kate's condition was getting worse, not better. The doctors were concerned about how quickly the disease was progressing despite the treatments they had been giving her. They wanted to see both William and Kate in the office as soon as possible to discuss the next steps. He set the letter down on the table and put his head in his hands. For months, he had been staying strong for Kate and the children. He had been positive and encouraging, telling everyone that the treatments were working and that Kate would be fine. But now, sitting alone in his kitchen with this devastating news, he felt completely overwhelmed. William thought about his 3 children sleeping upstairs. George, who was becoming more serious and responsible every day, clearly sensing that something was wrong with his mother. Charlotte, who had been extra clingy lately, always wanting to sit close to Kate and hold her hand. And little Louis, who was too young to understand what was happening but could feel the tension in the house. How could he tell them that their mother was getting sicker instead of better? How could he explain that the treatments that were supposed to help her were not working? How could he look at Kate and tell her that the doctors wanted to try something even more difficult and painful than what she was already going through? The sound of footsteps upstairs told William that Kate was awake. She always tried to get up early to have breakfast with the children before they went to school. You could hear her moving around in their bedroom, probably getting dressed and trying to make herself look healthy and normal for another day. She had become an expert at hiding how sick she really felt. William quickly folded the letter and put it in the drawer of the kitchen table. He couldn't tell Kate about this right now. Not when she was about to come downstairs and pretend everything was fine for the children. Not when she was already fighting so hard every single day just to get through the normal activities of life. He stood up and walked back to the window. looking out at the garden again. The roses were so beautiful and full of life. Kate had told him once that roses were survivors. They could grow in almost any condition and would keep blooming year after year if you took care of them properly. She said that was why she loved them so much. They reminded her that beautiful things could grow even in difficult circumstances. William heard Kate's footsteps coming down the stairs. He quickly wiped his eyes and turned away from the window. He needed to be strong for her, at least 4. Now, he needed to give her one more normal morning before their world changed again. He could hear her humming softly as she walked toward the kitchen. The same little tune she always hummed when she was trying to stay positive. The kitchen door opened, and Kate walked in. Already dressed for the day in a simple blue dress and cardigan, she had put on makeup to hide the dark circles under her eyes and had styled her hair carefully to cover the places where it had become thinner from the treatments. To anyone who didn't know her well, she would look completely normal, but William could see the tiredness in her eyes and the way she moved just a little bit slower than she used to. She walked over to him and wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, resting her head against his back. They stood like that. For a moment, both of them drawing strength from each other without saying a word. Kate held William close for a few more seconds before letting go and walking to the cupboard to get her morning tea. She moved carefully, as if every step required thought and planning. William watched her pour hot water into her favorite mug, the one Charlotte had painted for her last Mother's Day. It had a wobbly heart on it and the words "Best Mom Ever" written in shaky letters. "You're up early today," Kate said softly, stirring honey into her tea. "Did you sleep well?" Her voice was gentle, but William could hear the tiredness in it. She was trying to sound normal and cheerful, but he knew her too well. He could see the effort it took for her to stand at the counter and make simple conversation. "I couldn't sleep much," William admitted, which was true. He'd been awake for hours thinking about everything they were going through. "I kept thinking about the children and school and all the things we need to do today." He didn't mention the real reason he couldn't sleep, which was his constant worry about her health. Kate nodded and took a small sip of her tea. "The children have been so good lately," she said. "George helped Lewis with his reading last night, without me even asking, and Charlotte organized her own school bag for today. They're growing up so fast." There was a sadness in her voice when she talked about the children growing up. William knew she was thinking about all the things she might miss if her condition got worse. "They're good kids," William said, walking over to stand beside her. "They get that from their mother." He put his arm around her shoulders and felt how thin she had become. The treatments were taking so much out of her, but she never complained. She just kept going, day after day, taking care of everyone else. Kate leaned into him for a moment. "I need to wake them up soon," she said. "George has that science project due today, and I promised Charlotte I would braid her hair in a special way she saw in a magazine." She always remembered every little detail about what the children needed and wanted, even when she was feeling terrible. "I can wake them up," William offered. "You should rest a bit longer. You look tired." Immediately regretted his words. Kate hated when people told her she looked tired or sick. She was working so hard to appear normal and healthy. "I'm fine," Kate said quickly, but not in an angry way. "I want to do their hair and help them get ready. It makes me feel useful." She paused and looked at him. "You're the one who looks worried about something. Is everything okay?" William felt his heart skip a beat. Kate had always been able to read him like a book. Even when she was dealing with her own problems, she could tell when something was bothering him. He thought about the letter hidden in the kitchen drawer and felt guilty for keeping it from her. But he also knew that telling her right now would ruin her morning with the children. "Everything's fine," he said, hoping his voice sounded convincing. "I just have a lot on my mind with work and everything." Wasn't completely a lie. He did have work responsibilities that were constantly weighing on him, but they seemed so unimportant compared to Kate's health. Kate studied his face for a moment. She knew he was not telling her everything, but she also knew that William often tried to protect her from additional stress. "You know you can tell me anything," she said gently. "We're a team, remember? We handle everything together." Before William could respond, they heard the sound of little feet running down the stairs. Louis appeared in the kitchen doorway, his hair sticking up in all directions and his pajamas twisted around his small body. He ran straight to Kate and wrapped his arms around her legs. "Mummy, I had a dream about dragons," he said, his voice muffled against her dress. "But they were nice dragons, and they wanted to be my friends." Kate smiled and ran her fingers through his messy hair. She had always been amazing with the children, knowing exactly what to say to make them feel safe and loved. "That sounds like a wonderful dream," Kate said, bending down to pick Louis up. William watched as she lifted their youngest son, noticing how much effort it took her. A few months ago, she would have picked him up easily. Now she had to use her whole body to lift him, and William could see the strain on her face. "Can we have pancakes for breakfast?" Louis asked, wrapping his arms around Kate's neck. "Please, Mummy. With the syrup that looks like a smiley face?" Kate looked at William, and he could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to make pancakes for Louis, but William knew that standing at the stove and cooking would be exhausting for her. He also knew that she would never admit it. "I'll make the pancakes," William said quickly. "Mummy can help you get dressed and ready for school." He took Louis from Kate's arms, and she looked relieved even though she tried to hide it. "Are you sure?" Kate asked. "Do you have that meeting this morning?" She always remembered his schedule, even when she was feeling sick. "The meeting can wait," William said. "Family breakfast is more important." He meant it. Nothing was more important than these moments with his family, especially now when he didn't know how many more they would have. Charlotte appeared in the kitchen next, already dressed in her school uniform, but with her hair completely tangled from sleep. "Mummy, can you fix my hair?" she asked. "I want it to look like the princess in the magazine I showed you yesterday." "Of course, sweetheart," Kate said, though William could see that she was already getting tired just from the few minutes of morning activity. "Go sit at the table, and I'll get the brush and ribbons." George was the last to come downstairs. At 10 years old, he was becoming more independent and serious. He had been watching his parents carefully lately, and William, he suspected that he understood more about Kate's illness than they realized. He was trying to be helpful and mature, which broke William's heart. George should be worrying about homework and friends, not about whether his mother was going to be okay. "Good morning," George said politely, sitting down at the table next to Charlotte. "Ma'am, do you feel well enough to look at my science project?" "The teacher said parents should check it before we turn it in." Kate's face lit up. She loved being involved in the children's schoolwork. "I would love to see it," she said. "We can look at it together while Daddy makes breakfast." William started mixing pancake batter while Kate braided Charlotte's hair and looked over George's project. Louis sat on the floor playing with toy cars and making quiet engine noises. For a few minutes, they felt like a normal family having a normal morning. But William kept thinking about the letter in the drawer and wondering how much longer they could pretend that everything was fine. After breakfast, William helped get the children ready for school, while Kate sat at the kitchen table, resting between activities. She was trying to hide how exhausted she felt, but William could see her hands shaking slightly as she sipped her tea. The simple act of braiding Charlotte's hair and helping with George's project had taken more energy than she wanted to admit. "Mummy, are you coming to pick us up from school today?" Charlotte asked as she put on her shoes. This was a question she had been asking every morning lately. Kate used to pick up the children every day, but recently William or their nanny had been doing it more often when Kate wasn't feeling well. "I'll try my best, sweetheart," Kate said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "If I can't make it, Daddy'll be there, or Mrs. Henderson will come get you." Mrs. Henderson was their part-time nanny who had been helping out more frequently. As Kate's treatments became more demanding, William watched this exchange and felt his heart break a little more. Kate loved picking up the children from school. It was one of her favorite parts of the day, hearing about their lessons and friends on the drive home. But lately, she'd been too tired or too sick from treatments to make the trip. After the children left for school, the house became quiet again. Kate remained at the kitchen table, staring out the window at the garden. William could see that she was struggling with something, but he wasn't sure if it was physical pain or emotional worry, maybe both. "Would you like to go back to bed for a while?" William asked gently. "You could rest before your appointment this afternoon." Kate had a treatment session scheduled at the hospital, something she had been dreading all week. "I don't want to spend my whole life in bed," Kate said quietly. "I feel like I'm disappearing a little bit more each day. If I keep sleeping and resting, I might just fade away completely." Her voice was so sad that William had to look away. For a moment to compose himself, he sat down next to her at the table and took her hand. Her fingers were cold and thin, so different from the strong hands that used to work in the garden and bake cookies with the children. "You're not disappearing," he said firmly. "You're fighting the hardest battle anyone could fight, and you're still here with us. That's not disappearing. That's being incredibly brave." Kate squeezed his hand weakly. "Some days I don't feel brave at all," she admitted. "Some days I feel scared and angry and tired of pretending everything is okay. I look at the children and I wonder if they'll remember me as the mother who was always sick, always tired, always going to the hospital." William felt tears starting to form in his eyes. He had been so focused on being strong for Kate that he hadn't realized how much she was struggling emotionally. "The children will remember you as the most loving, caring mother in the world," he said. "They'll remember how you still braided Charlotte's hair even when you were tired. They'll remember how you helped George with his homework even when you weren't feeling well. They'll remember that you never stopped being their mom, no matter what." Kate nodded, but William could see she wasn't entirely convinced. "I used to have so many plans," she said. "I was going to teach Charlotte how to bake my grandmother's cake recipe. I was going to take George to see the places I visited when I was young. I was going to watch Louis learn to ride his bike without training wheels. Now I don't know if I'll be able to do any of those things." Pain in her voice was almost unbearable. William had been carrying his own fears about the future, but hearing Kate express her worries made everything feel more real and frightening. "You're going to do all of those things," he said, though he wasn't sure if he believed it himself. "The treatments are going to work, and you're going to get better." "What if they don't?" Kate asked quietly. "What if I don't get better? If this is as good as it gets?" She had never asked these questions so directly before. Usually they both tried to stay positive and hopeful, but today felt different. William didn't know how to answer. He thought about the letter hidden in the kitchen drawer, the one that suggested her condition was getting worse, not better. He thought about all the phone calls he had been making to doctors around the world, searching for other treatment options. He thought about the fear that kept him awake at night, wondering what would happen to their family if Kate didn't recover. "Then we'll make the most of whatever time we have," he said finally. "We'll create beautiful memories with the children. We'll take trips and have adventures and laugh together. We'll make sure they know how much you love them, and they'll carry that love with them forever." Kate started crying then, not the quiet tears she sometimes shed when she thought no one was looking, but real sobs that shook her whole body. William pulled her close and held her while she cried, feeling helpless and heartbroken. He had been trying so hard to stay positive and strong, but in this moment, he realized that sometimes the most loving thing he could do was simply acknowledge how scared they both were. "I'm sorry," Kate said when she finally stopped crying. "I didn't mean to break down like that. I know you're dealing with enough without having to worry about my emotions too." "Don't apologize," William said firmly. "You're allowed to be scared. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to feel angry about what's happening to you. I'm your husband, and I want to share all of it with you, not just the brave moments." Kate wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I love you so much," she said. "I don't know what I would do without you." "You'll never have to find out," William replied, though even as he said it, he felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. "We're going to get through this together, whatever happens." They sat in silence for a while, holding each other and looking out at the garden. The roses were in full bloom, just as Kate had said they would be. They were survivors, beautiful and strong, despite the difficult conditions they sometimes faced. William hoped that he and Kate could be like those roses, finding ways to bloom and thrive even in the darkest times. The phone rang, interrupting their quiet moment. William got up to answer it, and Kate could hear him talking to someone in a low voice. When he came back to the table, his expression was serious. "That was Dr. Mitchell's office," he said carefully. "They want to move up your appointment. Instead of this afternoon, they'd like to see us this morning if possible." Doctors didn't usually move appointments up unless there was something urgent they needed to discuss. "Did they say why?" she asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. William hesitated. He thought about the letter in the drawer and realized he couldn't keep the truth from her any longer. "There are some test results they want to go over with us," he said. "I think we should go and hear what they have to say." When they arrived home from the hospital, Kate went straight upstairs to their bedroom. She needed time alone to think about everything Dr. Mitchell had told them. William watched her climb the stairs slowly, her hand gripping the railing for support. He wanted to follow her and hold her, but he knew she needed space to process the news in her own way. William stood in the empty hallway for several minutes, not knowing what to do with himself. The house felt too quiet and too big. He walked to the kitchen and sat at the table where they had eaten breakfast just a few hours earlier. Everything looked exactly the same, but somehow the whole world felt different now. He pulled out his phone and stared at it for a long time. There were so many people he should probably call. Kate's parents, his own family, close friends who had been supporting them through this journey, but he didn't know what to say. How do you tell people that the person you love most in the world is getting sicker instead of better? Instead of making phone calls, William found himself thinking about all the plans he and Kate had made for their future. They had talked about traveling when the children were older, maybe taking a trip to Italy or Greece. Kate had always wanted to see the ancient ruins and walk through old cities with centuries of history. They had planned to renew their wedding vows on their 20th anniversary, surrounded by family and friends in the same chapel where they were first married. Now, William wondered if any of those dreams would come true. He wondered if Kate would be alive for their next anniversary. The thought was so painful that he had to stand up and walk around the kitchen to distract himself from it. Upstairs, Kate was lying on their bed, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't crying anymore. She felt strangely calm, as if hearing the worst. Possible news had somehow freed her from the anxiety of not knowing. At least now she understood what she was facing. The uncertainty had been almost as difficult as the illness itself. Kate thought about her children and what the new treatment would mean for them. If she was in the hospital for days at a time, they would have to stay with William or other family members. They would see her even less than they already did. And when she came home between treatments, she would probably be too sick to take care of them the way she wanted to. She also thought about the possibility that the treatment might not work at all. Dr. Mitchell had been honest about the statistics. 60% of patients didn't respond well to this type of chemotherapy. Kate had never been good at math, but she understood that the odds were not in her favor. The sound of children's voices in the driveway told Kate that school was over. William had arranged for Mrs. Henderson to pick them up today, since they didn't know how long the hospital appointment would take. Kate could hear George, Charlotte, and Louis talking excitedly about their day as they walked up to the front door. Kate got up from the bed and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red from crying, and her face looked pale and tired. She splashed cold water on her cheeks and tried to make herself look more normal. The children didn't need to see how upset she was, at least not yet. She walked downstairs just as the children were coming through the front door. Louis ran to her immediately and wrapped his arms around her legs, just like he had done that morning. Charlotte was carrying a painting she had made in art class, and George had his science project tucked under his arm. "Mommy, look what I made," Charlotte said, holding up her painting. It was a picture of their family standing in front of their house with bright yellow sun and fluffy white clouds in the sky. Everyone in the picture was smiling and holding hands. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Kate said, taking the painting and examining it carefully. "I love how you made our house look so happy and bright." She meant it. Charlotte's innocent view of their family as perfect and content made Kate's heart ache with love and sadness. "Mrs. Henderson said you and Daddy had to go to an important meeting today," George said, watching Kate's face carefully. Was it about work or about something else? George was becoming too perceptive for his own good. Kate could see that he was trying to figure out why his parents had been acting worried lately. It was just a routine appointment, Kate said, which was technically true, even though it hadn't felt routine at all. Nothing for you to worry about. She hated lying to her children. But she wasn't ready to have the difficult conversation about her illness getting worse. William came into the hallway and helped the children hang up their school bags and coats. He looked at Kate, and she could see the question in his eyes. They needed to talk about what Dr. Mitchell had told them, but not in front of the children. "Why don't you three go wash your hands and I'll get you a snack," Kate said. "Then you can tell us all about your day at school?" The children ran upstairs. chattering about their friends and teachers and the games they had played at recess, when they were alone again. William walked over to Kate and put his arms around her. They held each other tightly, both of them thinking about the impossible decision they had to make. Kate could feel William's heart beating fast against her chest. "What are we going to do?" William whispered. His voice sounded lost and scared, so different from his usual confident tone.
"I don't know,"
Kate admitted. "The treatment sounds horrible, but not trying it sounds even worse." She pulled back to look at his face. "What do you think I should do?" William felt the weight of her question. She was asking him to help her decide whether to go through months of severe illness and pain for a 40% chance of getting better. He didn't feel qualified to make that kind of decision for anyone, especially not for the woman he loved more than life itself. "I think we should get a second opinion," William said finally. "Maybe there are other doctors who have different ideas about treatment. Maybe there are clinical trials or experimental treatments that Dr. Mitchell doesn't know about." Kate nodded. "I was thinking the same thing. I want to explore every possible option before I decide." She paused, listening to the children moving around upstairs. "But I also don't want to spend the next few months going from doctor to doctor, getting sicker, while I search for a miracle cure that might not exist." "We'll be smart about it," William said. "We'll give ourselves 2 weeks to research other options. If we don't find anything better, we'll go with Dr. Mitchell's recommendation." That evening, after the children were in bed, William sat at his computer researching cancer treatment centers around the world. Kate curled up on the sofa with a blanket, too tired to help but grateful that William was taking action. She watched him type and click and read, his face lit by the blue glow of the screen. "There's a clinic in Switzerland that specializes in cases like yours," William said, without looking away from the computer. "And there's a research hospital in America that's doing trials with a new type of immunotherapy." Kate felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe there were options they hadn't considered. Yet, maybe somewhere in the world there was a doctor who could help her get better. But she also knew that hope could be dangerous. It could keep her from accepting reality and making practical decisions about her remaining time with her family. "Let's call them tomorrow," Kate said softly. "But William, I need you to promise me something." He turned to look at her. "Anything. If we can't find a better option, and if the treatments aren't working, I want you to promise that you'll help me focus on living instead of just trying not to die." William felt tears starting to form in his eyes again. He understood what Kate was asking him. She wanted him to support her if she decided to stop fighting the cancer and instead spend her remaining time making memories with their family. "I promise," he said, though the words felt like they were breaking his heart. The drive to the hospital was mostly silent. Kate sat in the passenger seat staring out the window at the familiar London streets, while William gripped the steering wheel tightly. They had made this journey so many times over the past months that they knew every traffic light and every turn. But today felt different. Today felt like they were driving toward news that would change everything. Kate had changed into a simple dress and cardigan. It's the same outfit she always wore to medical appointments. She said it made her feel more like herself and less like a besace patient. William had put on his best suit, not because he needed to look formal, but because wearing nice clothes somehow made him feel more prepared to face whatever the doctors were going to tell them. "Do you think the children suspect anything?" Kate asked as they stopped at a red light. She had been worrying about this for weeks. George especially seemed to notice when his parents were stressed or worried. He would watch them with serious eyes as if he was trying to figure out what the adults weren't telling him. "They know you're not feeling well," William said carefully. "But I think they believe the treatments are helping. They see you getting up every morning and taking care of them, so they assume you're getting better." He paused, watching pedestrians cross the street in front of them. "Maybe we should have been more honest with them from the beginning." Kate shook her head. "They're so young. George is only 10, and Louis is barely 5. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that his mother might not get better? How do you tell children that the world isn't always fair and that bad things happen to good people?" William didn't have an answer for that. He had been struggling with the same questions himself. Part of him wanted to prepare the children for the possibility that Kate might not recover, but another part of him wanted to protect their innocence for as long as possible. He wanted them to believe that their mother would always be there to tuck them in at night, and help them with their homework. They arrived at the hospital and found a parking space near the main entrance. The building was large and modern, with lots of glass windows and clean white walls. Kate had once told William that she hated how sterile and cold hospitals felt. She missed the warmth and comfort of their home, especially when she had to spend long hours here for treatments. Inside the hospital, they took the elevator to the third floor where Dr. Mitchell's office was located. The waiting room was painted in soft colors and had magazines scattered on small tables. There were other patients waiting with their families, some looking hopeful and others looking worried. William and Kate had learned to recognize the different expressions people wore in cancer treatment centers. A nurse called their names after only a few minutes of waiting. Usually they had to wait much longer for appointments, which made Kate even more nervous about why they had been asked to come in so urgently. They followed the nurse down a long hallway lined with examination rooms and doctors' offices. Dr. Mitchell was waiting for them in her office, a small room with a desk, 3 chairs, and medical certificates hanging on the walls. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair. Kate had always appreciated how Dr. Mitchell spoke to her like a person, not just a patient with a disease. "Thank you for coming in on such short notice," Dr. Mitchell said as they sat down. "I know this was supposed to be scheduled for this afternoon, but I wanted to discuss Kate's latest test results with you as soon as possible." Kate reached for William's hand and held it tightly. She could feel her heart beating faster as she waited for the doctor to continue. William squeezed her fingers gently, trying to give her strength even though he felt terrified himself. Dr. Mitchell opened a folder on her desk and pulled several papers covered with numbers and medical terms. "I'm going to be completely honest with you both," she said. "The results from Kate's blood work and scans are not what we hoped to see. The cancer markers have increased significantly over the past month." Kate felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. She had been preparing herself for this possibility, but hearing the words spoken out loud made everything feel real and frightening. William's grip on her hand tightened, and she could feel him trembling slightly. "What does that mean exactly?" William asked, his voice sounding strained. "Are the treatments not working at all?" Dr. Mitchell looked at them with sympathy in her eyes. "The current treatment plan is not controlling the cancer as effectively as we had hoped," she explained. "The disease is progressing faster than we expected. We need to consider more aggressive treatment options." Kate found her voice. "What kind of more aggressive treatments?" she asked. "Are you talking about stronger chemotherapy?" She had heard other patients talking about treatments that made them much sicker than what she was currently experiencing. "Yes," Dr. Mitchell said gently. "We would need to switch to a different type of chemotherapy that is more powerful, but also has more severe side effects. You would need to be hospitalized for several days at a time for each treatment cycle. The side effects would include severe nausea, extreme fatigue, and likely complete hair loss." William felt like he was going to be sick. He thought about Kate being in the hospital for days at a time, away from the children, feeling even worse than she already did. He thought about trying to explain to George, Charlotte, and Louis why their mother was even sicker than before. "What are the chances that this new treatment will work?" Kate asked quietly. William was amazed by how calm she sounded. Even in this terrifying moment, she was being braver than he felt. Dr. Mitchell hesitated before answering. "The statistics show that about 40% of patients respond well to this type of treatment. For those who do respond, we often see significant improvement in their condition." "And for the 60% who don't respond?" William asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "We would continue to explore other options," Dr. Mitchell said carefully. "There are clinical trials and experimental treatments we could consider. But I want to be honest with you both. This is a serious situation, and we need to act quickly." Kate was quiet for a long moment, processing everything the doctor had told them. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, but sad. "How long do I have to decide about the new treatment?" "I would recommend starting as soon as possible," Dr. Mitchell said. "Ideally within the next week or two. The sooner we begin, the better chance we have of controlling the cancer's progression." William felt overwhelmed by the weight of the decision they were facing. The new treatment sounded horrible, but not trying, it seemed even worse. He looked at Kate and saw that she was thinking the same thing. Can we have some time to discuss this? Kate asked. I need to think about how this will affect my family, especially my children. Dr. Mitchell nodded. Of course. But please don't wait too long to make your decision. Time is an important factor in your treatment success. They scheduled a follow-up appointment for the next week and left the hospital feeling like their world had been turned upside down. The drive home was even quieter than the drive there. Both of them were lost in their own thoughts about what the future might hold. Over the next few days, William found himself unable to concentrate on anything except the secret project he had been working on for weeks. Every spare moment he had, he would slip out to the garden shed where he had been carefully crafting something special for Kate. The wooden bench was almost finished, made from oak trees that had grown on their property for decades. He had carved their names and the children's names into the backrest. Along with the date they had moved to Adelaide Cottage, William had originally planned to surprise Kate with the bench for her birthday next month. But after the devastating news from Dr. Mitchell, he felt an urgent need to show her how much she meant to their family right now, while she could still enjoy it. He couldn't give her more time or take away her illness, but he could give her something beautiful that would remind her of their love every day. Kate had been spending most of her time resting, but she had noticed William disappearing to the shed more often than usual. When she asked him about it, he would just smile and say he was working on a small project. Kate was too tired to press him for details, but she was curious about what could be keeping him so busy. The children had also noticed their father's mysterious activities. George had seen him carrying tools and wood into the shed, and Charlotte had caught him looking at her drawings of flowers and gardens. Louis had asked why Daddy was always dirty when he came back from outside, with sawdust on his clothes and under his fingernails. On Thursday evening, William realized his project was finally ready. He had spent hours sanding the wood until it was perfectly smooth, and he had applied several coats of protective finish to make sure it would last for many years. The bench was beautiful and sturdy, exactly what he had envisioned when he started building it, but William also knew that the bench was just part of what he wanted to create for Kate. He had been planning something bigger, something that would involve the whole family and show Kate how much joy and love surrounded her even during this difficult time. He wanted to create a moment that would give her strength and hope. Regardless of what the future held, William waited until Friday evening when Kate was having her bath and the children were in their pajamas watching television. He quietly gathered George, Charlotte, and Louis in the kitchen and told them about his plan. He explained that he had built something special for their mother, and he wanted their help to make it even more meaningful. Is it because Mummy has been sad lately? Charlotte asked with her innocent 6-year-old perception. She had noticed that her mother seemed tired and worried more often than usual. Mummy has been going through a difficult time, William said. Carefully, she's been working very hard to get better, and sometimes that makes people feel tired and sad. I thought we could do something nice to show her how much we love her. George, who was the oldest and most observant of the 3 children, looked at his father seriously. Is Mummy going to be okay? He asked. It was the question William had been dreading, but also the one he knew George deserved an honest answer to. William knelt down, so he was at eye level with his son. The doctors are working very hard to help Mummy feel better, he said. Sometimes it takes a long time for medicine to work, but no matter what happens, we're going to take care of each other and make sure Mummy knows how much we love her. Louis, who was only 5 and didn't fully understand what was happening, climbed onto William's lap. Can we give Mummy presents? He asked. I like giving presents because they make people happy. That's exactly what we're going to do, William said, hugging Louis tightly. We're going to give Mummy the most special present we can think of. William explained his plan to the children. He had been secretly decorating the corner of the garden where he planned to place the bench. He wanted to hang fairy lights in the trees and surround the area with Kate's favorite flowers. But most importantly, he wanted each of the children to contribute something personal to make the surprise even more special. Charlotte immediately ran to her room and came back with several of her best drawings. She had made pictures of their family, their house, and the flowers in their garden. Mummy always says my drawings are beautiful, Charlotte said. Maybe we can hang them up like decorations. George thought for a moment. and then went to his desk, where he kept his school supplies. He came back with colored paper and markers. "I want to write Mummy a letter," he said. "I want to tell her that she's the best mom in the world, and that I love her even when she's sick." Louis wasn't sure what he could contribute, but William had an idea. "Why don't you pick some flowers from the garden?" he suggested. "You can choose the prettiest ones, and we'll put them in a special vase near the bench." The children worked enthusiastically on their contributions, while William made final preparations for the surprise. He strung fairy lights through the tree, branches above where the bench would sit, creating a magical canopy of twinkling lights. He planted Kate's favorite roses in pots around the area and arranged them in a circle. He even placed a small table nearby where they could put the children's artwork and flowers. When everything was ready, William stood back and looked at what they had created together. The corner of the garden looked like something from a fairy tale, warm and inviting and full of love. The bench sat perfectly in the center, surrounded by beauty and light. William felt a sense of satisfaction and peace that he hadn't experienced in months. But as he looked at the surprise they had prepared for Kate, William also felt a deep sadness. He realized that this might be one of the last big surprises he would be able to create for his wife. If the treatments didn't work, if her condition continued to worsen, there might not be many more opportunities for moments like this. William shook his head, trying to push away the negative thoughts. Tonight was about celebrating Kate and showing her how much she was loved. Tonight was about creating a beautiful memory that their family could treasure forever, regardless of what tomorrow might bring. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather. The sun was shining, but not too hot, and there was a gentle breeze that made the fairy lights dance slightly in the trees. Kate woke up feeling slightly better than she had in days, though she was still tired and weak from her treatments. William brought her tea in bed and sat beside her while she sipped it slowly. "How are you feeling this morning?" he asked, studying her face for any signs of pain or discomfort. "Better," Kate said, and she meant it. "I think I might even feel well enough to sit in the garden for a while today. I miss being outside." She had been spending so much time indoors lately, either resting or at medical appointments, that she felt disconnected from the natural world she loved so much. "That's perfect," William said, trying to keep the excitement out of his voice. "I have something I want to show you in the garden, something I've been working on for a while." Kate looked at him curiously. "Is this what you've been doing in the shed every evening?" she asked. "The children have been asking me what you're building out there." William smiled mysteriously. "You'll have to come outside and see for yourself," he said. "But first, let's get you dressed and have some breakfast. I want you to have plenty of energy for this surprise." Kate felt a flutter of anticipation in her chest. It had been so long since she had felt excited about anything. The constant worry about her health and the future had overshadowed almost everything else in her life. But William's obvious enthusiasm was contagious, and she found herself looking forward to seeing what he had been working on so secretly. After breakfast, William took Kate's hand and led her toward the garden door. The children followed behind them, barely able to contain their excitement about the surprise they had helped create. Kate could see through the window that something had changed in their garden, but she couldn't tell exactly what it was. "Close your eyes," William said gently when they reached the door. "I want this to be a complete surprise." Kate closed her eyes and let William guide her outside. She could smell the roses blooming and feel the warm sunshine on her face. She could hear the children whispering excitedly behind her, clearly thrilled to be part of whatever surprise awaited her. "Okay," William said softly. "You can open your eyes now." Kate opened her eyes and gasped. The corner of their garden had been transformed into the most beautiful, magical space she had ever seen. The handmade wooden bench sat surrounded by twinkling fairy lights and her favorite flowers. Charlotte's colorful drawings hung from the tree branches like prayer flags, and George's heartfelt letter was displayed on a small easel nearby. Louis had picked a bouquet of wildflowers that sat in a crystal vase on the little table. But it wasn't just the physical beauty that took Kate's breath away. It was the love that radiated from every carefully placed detail. She could see William's devotion in every smooth curve of the wooden bench he had crafted with his own hands. She could feel her children's affection in their artistic contributions. She could sense her family's determination to create something beautiful and hopeful during one of the darkest periods of their lives. Kate walked slowly toward the bench, taking in every detail. When she reached it and saw their family's names carved into the wood, she finally let the tears flow freely. But these weren't tears of sadness or fear. These were tears of overwhelming gratitude for the love that surrounded her and the family that refused to let darkness win.